Hello and welcome back to the channel. Sorry for the delay on the videos. Missed an upload last week. Hopefully the couple of reaction videos I did to some of the big trades that came up were good enough to hold you over until now. My laptop literally fried itself. Like I could smell burning off of it. So I could not make a video last week, but we're back with a new computer. And so that career video about Dan Dawson that I promised a while ago, it's right here, right now. Much awaited for the player who has had the literally longest career in NLL history, just announcing his retirement. No better time to take a look at the legendary career of one of the game's best players. If you like this content, hit the like button. If you want to see more past, present, and future NLL content, hit that subscribe button down below as well, and hit the bell to be notified when we go live with those videos. Should be every Saturday at 2 p.m., provided that my computer doesn't blow up again. Besides that, Dan Dawson has had a wonderful career. Now, for me, he's always been known as a player on the Rochester Nighthawks. Considering I really was only deeply into lacrosse after he got there and then won a couple of championships with them. But he's been a little bit of a journeyman all around the league over the past few years, and we'll take a look back at just how he got to where he was and how actually unlikely of a story Dan Dawson is as well, because unbeknownst to a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people would know that he was a 6th round pick in 2001, 68th overall to the Columbus Land Sharks, which also remarkably the same team that drafted Mark Steinhaus as well, for those who know anything about Buffalo Bandits lore as well. One of the best to ever play there, alongside John Tavares. Both phenomenal picks by the Columbus Land Sharks. Somehow they were able to get two of the greatest players in NLL history on the forward side of things. Regardless, after that year, he was playing for the Land Sharks, who are historically not a great team. He played 10 games there, obviously in an extreme depth role, had 3 goals, 3 assists for 6 points, 6 penalty minutes as well, and 29 loose balls in that year. That would be his career low until he would once again stop playing frequent games in the NLL. At the end of his year with the Toronto Rock, he never played a full season, and I think that was mostly due to age, because he was here in Toronto from 38 to 40 years of age, so a little bit of load management for him. But the rookie campaign was a little bit pushed aside by a much, much better sophomore year with the Land Sharks. 16 games, 28 goals, 24 assists, 52 points, which would, again, be his career low until he didn't play a full season again in 2018 when he was traded from Rochester to the Saskatchewan Rush. Where you'd only get 37 points. But still a wonderful year. Also one of just a few times in his career where he would hit double-digit penalty minutes. You can see those sprinkled a little bit throughout, but typically a player that didn't take a lot of penalties, so a very good guy to have out there for any team that picked him up, mostly because you knew that he would be able to produce, and produce he would when he got to the Arizona Sting in the next year. 26 goals, 48 assists for 74 points, 19 penalty minutes, which would be a high for a very, very long time, and 43 loose balls on top of that as well. And while the Sting would miss out on the playoffs that year, they would get in the year after, where Dan Dawson would yet again take another wonderful step in his game. I actually just noticed that I have this marked off incorrectly as 48 goals in 2005 would be his career high, not 47 that he would score 2 years later when they would make another good playoff push. But that 05 year, 48 goals, 36 assists for 84 points. A wonderful year as well. And only 8 penalty minutes. Only took 4 penalties all year long. And Also 73 loose balls. Very, very good season there. That would be paired with 10 goals, 5 assists, 15 points in 3 playoff games where they would lose in the grand finals to the Toronto Rock, who would win their last cup until 2011. But still a very, very good campaign for him with the Sting that year. That would be rivaled by his run in 2007 with the Sting in the playoffs as well. But 2006, nothing to put down either in terms of a year. 34 goals, 48 assists, 82 points, 8 penalty minutes, 76 loose balls. A very similar year, but you can tell he's getting more into that feeder role that he would be kind of known for. Got a great set of eyes, and he would be known as kind of a passer after this point. And that would be paired with 4 goals, 7 assists, 11 points in the playoffs that year as well. Neglected to mention that in 05, he would get one of 2 playoff penalties that he would ever get as well. After that year, Sting, another unsuccessful campaign. They would try and push again in 2007 and fall short once again. But he would have the best year of his entire career, 47 goals, 60 assists for 107 points, a career high for Dan Dawson. 16 penalty minutes and 65 loose balls would go along with that, and also a very, very good playoff campaign. It would be the second best campaign in his entire career because the Portland Lumberjacks one was just insane. 6 goals, 12 assists, 18 points as well in that playoff run. Of course, the Sting falling short again. But a wonderful year for Dan Dawson, although the goal production would drop off from there. He would never hit 40 again until he hit exactly 40 in 2016. But other than that, not a goal scorer in terms of like really elite goal scoring from then on. He would then go and spend 1 year in Portland, where he would get 38 goals, 43 assists for 81 points, and get his career high in loose balls, 96 in that year for him. A phenomenal year over on Portland, and especially in the playoffs. 3 games played, 15 goals, which is already mind-blowing. But then 16 assists on top of that for 31 points in just 3 games. Absolutely insane goal scoring pace. 14 loose balls to go with it. Double digits in that category ever is great. And this would be the year that he would take his second of 2 playoff penalties as well. But with point production like that, you don't mind sending a guy off for 2 minutes every now and then. But yes, a wonderful way to cap off a year that was typically a down year a little bit for him, kind of nestling back into the point production that you would expect out of Dan Dawson for the time. But that would pick up significantly over the next 4 years. He would team up with his brother Paul Dawson and take his talents to Boston, where he would find some more assist touch in his game. 74 assists in 2009, 30 goals on top of that for 104 points. The second time in his career he would score a full 100 points. Only 8 penalty minutes again. Amazing numbers there, and 54 loose balls as well. In the playoffs, had one phenomenal game with 7 assists, 6 loose balls in that game as well. The Boston Blazers never had playoff success, unfortunately, and that would come to bite him here as he would make 1 playoff game for just the next 4 years. The year after, a little bit of a drop-off, 36 goals, 52 assists for only 88 points, but still amazing numbers for Dan Dawson. 36 penalty minutes this year, though. You can tell a little bit of a style change for this one specific year. Needed to be a little bit more of that tough guy and put up 75 points as well. That would be his career high in penalty minutes all-time as well. And in this year, he would also improve on his playoff success in 1-game shootouts here. 1 goal, 7 assists this time, adding a number in the goal column instead of just 7 assists. and 5 loose balls on top of that. Boston would be out in just that one game, even despite the phenomenal efforts that Dan Dawson would put up all 3 years he was there. And his third phenomenal effort would come just the year after, where he would score 90 points again. And another phenomenal year for Dan Dawson. You could tell that this was one of those really good years in his career, and he wrangled in those penalty minutes. Only 6 this year, and still had the same point production. 59 assists as well this year. Very good there. And 65 loose balls with 31 goals as well in there. In his one playoff game, a slight drop off a little bit. Slight drop off would be the next year. But this year, actually improving a little bit, trading in an assist for a goal himself. 2 goals, 6 assists in just the one game again, somehow. His playoff production over these few years is just nuts, because you have 6 games, 31 points in just those 3, and then 16, 23 points in the next 3 playoff games that he would play. Just crazy good production from him over those years. That would be an average of 9 points per playoff game over those 6 games in those 4 years. And while it would drop off just a little bit with the Philadelphia Wings, his regular season production would take a boost in the assists column, once again hitting 100 points for the last time in his career. 25 goals, which would be the lowest that he would get in a very, very long time, but 78 assists on the other end, feeding a lot of the great goal scorers that Philadelphia had in that 2012 year. 58 loose balls and 8 penalty minutes to go along with it. The playoffs, only 6 points this time, which for Dan Dawson at this point was a down year in the playoffs, which is insane. A goal, 5 assists for 6 points, 5 loose balls on top of that as well. But the Wings would be one and done this year, and he would look for a little bit more success in the playoffs, as for the last long time, he wouldn't find any. So he went to the Rochester Knighthawks, again with his brother Paul Dawson. In 2013, he would win his first championship with the Rochester Knighthawks. 16 games played, 23 goals, 52 assists for 74 points. Very much a down year at this point in his career. And a little bit of worry maybe if he was going to get back to form. Obviously, you can see that he did back up to 91 points the next year, 72 assists as well, the third best season in assists of his career. And in the playoffs that year, only 3 games played, but still 14 points, 7 loose balls, and of course, a championship ring on top of it. So a very, very good season for him there to capitalize on the opportunity with Rochester, and he would again the next year as the league would expand to an 18-game format. 23 goals, 62 assists. I'm reading ahead a little bit. 19 goals, 72 assists, 91 points, 60 loose balls again. And in the playoffs, he would play 5 games, a all-time high for him. 7 goals, 8 assists, 15 points. Only 2 loose balls, but still a championship ring nonetheless. And that would be his second of 3, as the Knighthawks would have a unfortunately unsuccessful campaign in 2015. 23 goals, 62 assists, 85 points, 19 penalty minutes, his highest in a very long time. The first time he'd been back to double digits in 5 seasons, but still was able to put a great total up in the points column. 4 games played in the playoffs, only 2 goals, but 11 assists for 13 total points, 8 loose balls as well. But unfortunately, the Knighthawks would be unsuccessful. And then they would fall into a bit of a bad streak for a couple of years, missing the playoffs twice. Still, Dawson putting up good point totals here. 40 goals for the first time in a long time on Rochester. And that would be the last time that he would break the 30-goal mark in his career, let alone 40, 55 assists on top of that for 95 points and 62 loose balls, 12 penalty minutes on top of that as well, but would miss the playoffs. And the next year, the same thing would happen. Injured for a few games, only played 15 this year, only 18 goals, 36 assists for 54 points, 21 penalty minutes in there as well, and 41 loose balls. But he would miss the playoffs again. And then for the first and only time in his career, Dan Dawson, during the 2018 season, would be traded from the Nighthawks to the Saskatchewan Rush. Over the course of that year, over two teams, you could tell he was having a bit of a down year before he hit Saskatchewan. 13 games played, 11 goals, 26 assists, only 37 points, one penalty total for 2 minutes, and 24 loose balls. Not a particularly great year for him personally, but he would play a playoff game, get a goal in it, a loose ball as well, for one total point, but would get a ring with the Saskatchewan Rush in 2018, and that would be his third and final championship in the league. In 2019, he would sign with the San Diego Seals. Wanted to play out in Cali for a year. You know, it would be nice to play out in California with the expansion team. And obviously, Brody Merrill has been there. Pat Merrill behind the bench. A wonderful team to join. My nose is very itchy. And so he had a big bounce back year here. 18 games played, 29 goals, 59 assists for 88 points, 8 penalty minutes, and 49 loose balls. A very, very nice bounce back for them, but they would get bounced out in the first round of the playoffs here. Only one game played, 5 points in that game. Still, you can tell he's still a very good playoff performer, and only one loose ball, but no luck for the Seals in their what I believe was second year of playing in the league, if I remember correctly. And then COVID would hit, so no playoffs for 3 years. And with the shortened season for the Rock, 10 games played, 17 goals, 23 assists, 40 total points, 22 loose balls, and 7 penalty minutes, meaning he threw some fisticuffs in that year. So that's honorable of you, Dan. And then would miss out on a couple of years of training in there as well, and never really was the same player after that. 17 goals in 2022 after coming back from the COVID locked out season. 17 goals, 28 assists, 45 points, 34 loose balls, only one penalty. But a not so great season there. In the playoffs, the Rock would fall to the Buffalo Bandits because, of course, we did. 2 goals, 4 assists for 6 points over those games, 11 loose balls as well, picking that back up, and would hit triple digits in that category for the third and final time of his career. And then in the final season of his career, load management came on heavy this year, even with some injuries to very, very top guys in the Rock organization. Still was kind of in and out of the lineup for guys like Josh Dawick, Marley Angus getting a couple of games as well. Only played 12 games and did not achieve double-digit goals for the second and final time in his career. The only other time that he didn't get double-digit goals was in his rookie season, where he would get 3. This year he'd get 8. 16 assists would be a career low in assists as well, other than his rookie year, and 24 points would be an all-time low as well. You could tell the production just wasn't quite there. Also took 10 minutes worth of penalties. So for the most part, this year, especially as somebody who watched a lot of games this season for the Rock, I think I only missed 2 over the same weekend. Dawson he didn't have the same touch this year. I'm not quite sure what was off this season compared to last, because 24 points, that's nothing to scoff at, but it's not a obvious 50-point scorer pace that he was on for the last long time. And in the playoffs, I mean, he did pick it up because he always seems to do that in the playoffs. Had a phenomenal game against Halifax, a goal and 3 assists in that one. Would pick up 3 other assists over the course of the next couple of games for a total of 7. But obviously with that terrible effort in the playoffs this year by the Rock, they would get bounced out in the second round after just 3 games, and Dawson would be without a win in the championship in his tenure with the Toronto Rock, which is very sad because as somebody who is a Rock fan, I feel like in 2020 they had a very good shot to make a deep playoff run with that roster of Rob Hellier, Tom Schreiber. Dan Craig was just starting to get into the Dan Craig that we know and love today, but COVID said no, and so that playoffs, we'll never know what would have happened that year or the next, really. And unfortunately, that would be it for Dawson's career. Overall, a wonderful career. The all-time leader in games played at 322, 17 more than John Tavares. 551 goals, the all-time leader in assists as well at 954 of 1,505 total points. Phenomenal, second all-time in that category to none other than the great John Tavares as well. 231 penalty minutes, 1122 loose balls, and in the playoffs, a phenomenal performer, 165 points over 34 playoff games. Talk about a player that steps up during playoff time. Throughout his career, he was just under 4 points a game on average, and in the playoffs, he was just over 5. So you can tell that he really picked it up, especially for that stretch from 08, really 07 onward, because he averaged 9 points a game in 07 and then averaged 9 points a game from 08 to 2011 as well. So a phenomenal player throughout his career, and playoffs were definitely where he shined through in a couple of seasons with, unfortunately, some pretty bad teams, but still ended up picking up his 3 titles as well. And as a note, he was traded to Saskatchewan in that deal in 2018 for 2 draft picks, a second rounder and a third rounder, that ended up being Luke Van Scheppen and Owen Friesen, for those who are Halifax Thunderbirds fans, because that's where the franchise is now. Those are the guys that you got for an aging Dan Dawson, who would then go on to beat you in that year's final. An unfortunate trade, and I don't think either of those guys are going to be like super great stars in the NLL, but for a guy who at the time was already 36 coming into an expiring contract, it's not a terrible pick. Just not a terrible haul for a guy like that. Just unfortunate that they couldn't get a little more for what is really the second greatest player of all time. But that is going to do it for this career recap video on the one and only Dangerous Dan Dawson. And my nose is going wild. I should take an allergy pill, and you should all hit that subscribe button for more NLL content on this channel. Hit the notification bell as well, and leave a comment below of what other players you'd like me to take a look at throughout their career. So I'd like to do a little bit more of these, and I don't know who exactly I would do it on. This one just felt right, considering he just retired. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section down below on who you'd like to see me do next. But for now, I am Colin Doyle, not the Colin Doyle, just a Colin Doyle, with a lifelong passion for the past, present, and future of lacrosse. And I will see you next Saturday for more lacrosse content. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.